So as y'all can see, I got the front bumper off of the mini semi, and I've got the skirts off the side of it. I'm going to be doing some work underneath it. I'm going to be doing some work to the front end, and you'll see where I'm going with this as we get a little further into this video. As you can tell, my current setup that I built, I basically have a solid 2" by 2" bar that's going all the way across to the other side. And this is a 1" pin that bar pivots on. It does allow each wheel to go up and down, but when one goes up, it's pushing the other one down. So it's not really... It's an articulation, but it's not really any kind of suspension or bump suppression, if you will. So I'm fixing to take this off and flip this whole piece to where this bar will be here going across, and then I'll have to flip these knuckles over to compensate for that. Alright, there it is. All dropped out. I'm going to take it inside the shop to do what I need to do to it. I'm going to put this all back together. I'm going to have a lot bigger tie rod on here. Something I wanted to do anyway. And I'm thinking about beefing these arms up with another 1/4" layer over top of that, just to kind of beef them up a little bit too. I've never been able to reuse these pins. Like once they get bent up, they just don't straighten back out. So, you know, they're real cheap. Just replace them. There's that piece off. So the way this spring is going to line up, that would be center. Well, that's out here on this piece of steel I got here supporting the bumper, but that's not going to be heavy enough to mount this to. So I'm going to put a piece of angle on the front of here that's a lot heavier that I can mount this to. I'll probably weld it probably to the bottom of that angle. Okay, so I bolted a piece of angle in the front end right here to kind of lengthen the frame out a little bit longer and give me a place to weld the purchase to for the springs there. And then I've just temporarily bolted the axle to the leaf spring, and I've got it jacked up. I'm trying to get a ride height. I think where I've got it's going to be pretty close, but as you can see, these pieces of steel that are hanging down that the axle used to pivot off of, I'm going to have to get them out of the way because they're not going to allow the suspension to compress at all. But I'm going to get them cut out and then try to put the wheels on there and tack weld the spring purchase good enough that I can put a little weight on there and make sure my ride height's going to be okay before I go further. We'll have to make a new tie rod and drag links and all that kind of stuff, so I just want to make sure that I'm getting my ride height good first. So I got the two steel pieces cut out of there, and don't look like I'm going to have any clearance issues yet. I've just kind of halfway mocked this up right now. I've put it back together and put the wheels and tires on it. I still have the jacks underneath it, and I'm about an inch high in the front end maybe, but I'm thinking about tacking it in place where it's at and then setting the weight down on it and see if it compresses down that inch. That's what I'm gonna have to do, is just play with the ride height just a little bit, because I don't know how much these things are going to compress, how much this body weighs on it, anything else. So I'm going to tack it in place, I think, right here, and then I'll take the jacks out from underneath it and we'll check it. Alright, so I have it's setting on the front axles now, and the springs compressed way more than I thought. I know the front end of this thing is probably a lot heavier than the front of a golf cart would be. So the other problem is I'm running into is those are not supposed to go back at that much angle, and the tire is not center of the wheel well. Like, it moved back quite a bit as it compressed. So I think I'm going to move these front spring purchase all the way out. That'll help straighten up that back there and should help line it in the wheel well a little bit more. So let me get on that. So I've moved the spring purchase all the way to the front, and that helped out a whole bunch. These are standing up pretty well straight when the pressure's off of it. When it sits down, they angle back just about the way they need to. The tire is actually a little bit to the front now of the wheel well, but that's okay. When it compresses, it goes back slightly, not too much. But gonna see if I can rig up some shock mounts on here now. So I've made these two brackets. I'm gonna have a bolt coming out of the side of here for the shock to fasten to. And then this will be the two pieces that will sandwich the axle and the leaf spring together. I got to get my bolts for these to go on there, and then like I say, then the shock will fasten to here. So I took the tie rod off of the golf cart. You see right there, I had to add a little piece to it. I had to lengthen it out just a little bit. And I drilled my holes in this top part for the shocks to go up in. I reinforced, just made some little gussets onto these pieces. And just to reinforce them a little bit. But I'm getting ready to put the tires on it and set it down and put the weight on it and tighten these shocks up a little bit. So I'm trying to get all my old steering mechanism stuff off here. I had this piece. This is the, well, if I can get where I'm not in the way of the camera. This was the arm that went back and forth that did the steering off of this unit. And if you've watched my previous videos about this, this is a gearbox, worm gearbox off of the front of a snowblower that actually turned the mechanism that threw the snow. Well, it's just not hardly got enough gearing to it, so I'm trying to drop all this out of here. The reason why I had to cut this shaft off is I went to drilled this piece to put a pin in there, right there, and the drill bit broke off down in there and wedged it, so I ended up just putting a couple little spot welds on there to hold it. Of course, when I did that, I just had to cut through the shaft to get it off, but I'm in the process of trying to get all that off now to use the rack and pinion steering unit off of one of the golf carts. I think that will be a lot better. So let me get a little bit more of this off of here and see what we got to do. I'm hoping once I take this plate out right here, steering should drop down through there, I hope. Well, alright. Let me get down underneath and see if I can get it out. Put all this stuff on here before I put the floor on there. It may not come out. I'll have to get that piece off of there, looks like. There it goes. Alright. That's the gearbox. Okay, there's our rack and pinion unit. I'm going to try to stick in the mini semi. Get the steering wheel off here, we'll push it up through there and see what it looks like. Well, this golf cart right here has almost been completely disassembled. Some of the front end stuff is still there, but I need to get this plate off right here because it's got the bolt pattern and stuff in there. Maybe I can reuse it underneath the semi to mount the rack and pinion underneath there. So let's see if I can get this thing cut out of here. So I've taken the piece that I cut off of the golf cart and added this piece of steel onto it right here, and hopefully that's going to be the way we're going to mount it. Fixing to put it up there and clamp it in place and see what it looks like. Got a little paint put on this and got this mounting piece welded on there. Next thing I need to do is, this was directly on there. Well, this needs to be about, I don't know, about that long, about 11 inches longer. So I got this bolt that will thread back up in there, and what I'm going to do is cut the head of this off and weld it up inside of here. I'm going to have to narrow this down a little bit, so I'm going to cut slits in it, squeeze it together where it will clamp down on that and weld it real good. And then I'll probably have to use this piece as the end of it and just weld a short piece. Weld this piece that I'm fixing to make to the end of this to make one longer tie rod. So I've made this new drag link right here. This should screw up into the rack and pinion unit, and this will tie back into what I've already got there. So let me get it installed, and that's pretty much going to have this steering wrapped up, I hope. Alright, coming to you.
Okay.
Alright, we're going to see how much better it turns. Alright, go ahead and turn it, Alex. That looks a lot easier.
Yeah, the thing is, that's as far as it'll go.
Alright, go the other way. Alright, is that as far as it goes?
Yeah.
Alright, straighten it back up. Whoa. That's good. That should be a lot better.